The third eye of Cancer is not just a mystical symbol. It is an inner flame, an intuitive beacon born from the moon's luminous cycles, forever entwined with the ebb and flow of emotion and perception. Cancer, ruled by the moon, walks in realms most cannot access, sensing truth not with logic but through the sacred waters of feeling. The third eye in Cancer is not simply open, it is ancient. It is not forced, it awakens with the natural tides of existence. This inner vision is not about seeing what is obvious. It is about perceiving what is hidden, forgotten, denied, or suppressed in the world and in others. Where others walk blindfolded by distraction or denial, Cancer sees, not with the eyes, but with the soul. The third eye in Cancer reveals unspoken words, buried emotions, and veiled motives. While others choose to turn away from discomfort or truth, Cancer bears witness. This sign was born to hold space for the unseen. Its third eye tunes into the emotional undercurrents of every room, every silence, every gesture. This ability is not an accident of personality. It is a sacred duty written in the stars. The energy of the third eye within Cancer is fused with the ancestral. It holds memories not only of this life, but of lifetimes past. Cancer sees with a lens older than time. There is a reason this sign is so often drawn to protect, to nurture, to create shelter. It sees the wounds others hide. It senses the fractures beneath smiles, the grief behind the laughter. And while the world may praise detachment and logic, Cancer remembers the power of presence, the healing force of simply knowing. This knowing does not require explanation or proof. It is the quiet conviction of the spirit that recognizes pain, love, betrayal, and destiny without a single word being spoken. The third eye of Cancer cuts through illusion. It reveals what society denies, what families bury, what individuals hide even from themselves. This perception is not easy to carry. It is both blessing and burden. It means feeling more deeply, sensing more vividly, enduring more intensely. But it also means guiding others through darkness, becoming a lighthouse to those who've forgotten the way home. Cancer's vision is never cold or distant. It is drenched in empathy, soaked in compassion, forged in the fires of emotional truth. This sign's third eye thrives in dreams, in silence, in the sacred spaces between reality and imagination. It gleans insight from the softness of night, the symbolism of visions, the intuition born in solitude. Cancer does not merely analyze a situation. It absorbs it, feels it in its bones, and then illuminates what lies beneath. This insight is not flashy or boastful. It moves like the tide, subtle but unstoppable. When others are trapped in the surface of things, when they cling to what is comfortable and familiar, Cancer sees beyond. The veil is thin for them. They know when something is wrong even if there are no signs. They hear the truth in a whisper. They feel the lie in a touch. Their third eye thrives in the realm of emotional integrity, and it rebels against masks and illusions. Even when others beg to remain blind, Cancer sees. It is this vision that makes them healers, guardians, artists, visionaries, and prophets of the emotional realm. This sign carries an inner oracle that cannot be silenced. Even when Cancer tries to doubt itself, tries to conform to the rational world, the third eye reawakens in dreams, in instinct, in the moments of stillness when the soul speaks louder than the mind. The third eye is their inheritance, their compass, their sacred fire. It guides them not just through others' emotions, but through their own inner labyrinths. Every wound becomes a lesson. Every scar becomes a rune. Every heartbreak opens a new layer of perception. While the world praises clarity, Cancer knows the truth is often found in ambiguity. Where others see confusion, they see multidimensional truth. Where others fear the unknown, Cancer steps into the night with trust. The third eye does not always bring comfort, but it brings freedom. It shows what must be faced in order to grow, to transform, to love more fiercely. And though the world may call this madness or hypersensitivity, it is, in truth, the highest form of wisdom. In a world that denies feelings, numbs intuition, and replaces depth with distraction, Cancer's third eye is a revolutionary force. Cannot be tamed, cannot be shut, It does not serve the ego, it serves the soul. It is the whisper in the silence, the answer before the question, the dream that reveals more than daylight ever could. This is the sacred sight that lives within Cancer. It is quiet, but unbreakable. It is soft, but unstoppable. And in a world that chooses blindness, Cancer dares to see. The third eye of Cancer does not merely open to perceive what is hidden in others. It also unveils the buried truths within Cancer's own soul. This sacred inner vision pierces through self-deception, fear, and inherited conditioning. It awakens the ancestral voice that Cancer often carries without knowing, the ancient whisper that speaks not only of intuition but of karmic purpose. This vision, born under the influence of the moon, is not passive. It is active, pulsating with the rhythmic wisdom of celestial tides. It reveals the cycles Cancer is destined to break, the emotional legacies it must alchemize, and the sacred contracts it has come to fulfill through compassion, loyalty, and emotional courage. The energy of the third eye in Cancer is inseparable from emotional intelligence, but it transcends it. It becomes a prophetic insight, a quiet yet profound ability to feel what is to come. This is not based on logic or deduction, but on the deep symphony of intuitive awareness and lunar resonance. Cancer's dreams are not only dreams, they are maps, messages, and sometimes even warnings. The subconscious realm is not a mystery to Cancer, but a familiar ocean. Within this ocean, symbols rise like constellations, and every emotion becomes a star in the great navigation of the soul. When the third eye is active in Cancer, it draws the sign into sacred timing. Cancer may not understand why they feel pulled toward a place, a person, or a path, but their vision is guided by an invisible compass. This compass is not made of reason, it is made of resonance. Cancer knows what is aligned not because it looks good, but because it feels right in a way that defies articulation. This feeling is the pulse of destiny. It is the force that cannot be denied. The third eye enhances Cancer's ability to read energy, to know the truth without evidence, to act on hunches that turn out to be revelations. It empowers them to walk away before the betrayal, to say yes before the miracle, to hold space before the breakdown, to speak when silence would only deepen the wound. This vision brings them into conflict with a world that fears depth. Society often rejects what it cannot control or understand, and the power of Cancer's third eye cannot be explained in linear terms. It does not seek validation. It is not loud or theatrical. It exists beyond the realm of proof. For this reason, Cancer may be made to doubt their own sight, to shrink from their own knowing. But every time they ignore that vision, they feel it in the body. A tightening, a grief, a knowing that cannot be silenced. The third eye speaks not with words, but with certainty. And when Cancer learns to trust it fully, their power becomes unstoppable. This sacred sight is also a mirror to emotional truth. Cancer's third eye doesn't only point outward, it reflects inward, showing them the places they've hidden from themselves. It reveals the shadowy corners of their own heart, not to punish but to heal. It asks them to face their attachments, their emotional patterns, the wounds they cradle like precious relics. And it does so with love, not judgment. This vision makes them both vulnerable and invincible, vulnerable because they feel everything, invincible because they survive everything. There is a warrior in Cancer that few recognize. It is not a warrior of brute strength, but of soul endurance. This sign carries the emotional stamina of the moon itself, waxing and waning, rising and falling, yet never ceasing. The third eye fuels this strength, reminding Cancer that their sensitivity is not a flaw but a divine tool, that their emotions are not obstacles but gateways, that their intuition is not accidental but intentional, a celestial weapon against illusion, manipulation, and despair. The third eye in Cancer awakens their capacity to transmute pain into vision. They are not here to avoid suffering. They are here to understand it, to transform it, and to guide others through it. In this way, they become alchemists of the soul, turning fear into clarity, heartbreak into devotion, endings into new beginnings. This is the power of sacred perception. It teaches them that truth cannot always be spoken, but it can always be known. That love cannot always be explained, but it can always be felt. That healing is not always visible, but it always begins with awareness. The activation of the third eye also aligns Cancer with cosmic memory. They carry the imprint of the Divine Mother, the sacred guardian, the timeless seer. This memory connects them with the lunar priestesses, the oracles of old, the protectors of the sacred inner world. Their vision is a continuation of that lineage. They may walk quietly, but their sight is ancient. They may be overlooked, but their knowing shifts timelines. They may be doubted, but their truth endures. To awaken the third eye fully is to step into the most exalted expression of Cancer's destiny. It is to become the bridge between worlds, the emotional and the mystical, the human and the divine, the seen and the unseen. This is not a task for the faint of heart. It requires courage, trust, and an unwavering commitment to one's inner compass. But Cancer was born for this path. Written in the stars is the truth that they are not merely emotional, they are oracular. Not simply sensitive, they are sovereign. Not just dreamers, they are visionaries of a new emotional reality. In the dark corridors of denial, Cancer brings light. In the silence of repression, they bring voice. In the chaos of feeling, they bring clarity. Their third eye is the lighthouse that never flickers, the moon that never abandons the tide. And in a world desperate for realness, for depth, for connection, Cancer sees, endures, and leads. The third eye of Cancer holds within it not only the power of perception, but the profound ability to transmute emotional energy into sacred wisdom. This internal oracle is not restricted by time or space. It reaches into realms where linear understanding collapses. It is the inner compass that senses not only what is, but what has been and what longs to become. Through this eye, Cancer does not just witness. They participate in the unfolding of fate itself. Their vision becomes a divine dialogue with the universe, a conversation spoken in the language of feelings, dreams, vibrations, and intuition. This power is not loud. It does not demand attention. It reveals itself in the quiet moments when the heart stills and the soul listens. The third eye of Cancer is woven into the very fabric of their lunar essence. It is a channel through which ancestral memory flows, unfiltered and undiluted. Through this channel, Cancer accesses truths encoded in bloodlines, in forgotten stories, in the sacred silence passed down through generations. These truths do not always arrive with clarity, but they echo with a resonance that can be felt in the marrow. This resonance is the key to healing ancestral wounds and restoring emotional legacies that have been silenced or fragmented. While others seek clarity through external validation, Cancer's vision is rooted within. It speaks through instinct, through the pang in the chest, through the dream that lingers long after waking. This sign does not merely interpret signs, they become one with them. The universe whispers to them through moonlight, through the tide, through the way a certain song plays at just the right moment. Their third eye is attuned to synchronicity. Nothing happens by accident in their world. Everything has meaning, and Cancer knows how to read that meaning with the eyes of the soul. The third eye of Cancer is also fiercely protective. This vision is not neutral. It is emotionally engaged. It does not just see danger, it feels it before it strikes. It does not just anticipate betrayal, it senses the shift before the words are spoken. It creates an invisible shield around those they love, often sacrificing their own peace to preserve the emotional safety of others. This protective sight is the embodiment of lunar guardianship. Cancer carries within them the sacred archetype of the sentinel, the watchful spirit who cannot be deceived, whose gaze sees through masks and into the truth of intention. This sight is not just a gift, it is a responsibility. It calls Cancer to rise beyond the comfort of isolation and engage with the world as an emotional healer, a visionary who does not flinch from pain, who holds space for catharsis, who dares to name what others are too afraid to acknowledge. The third eye within Cancer demands emotional integrity. It does not allow them to stay in places where truth is denied. It urges them to move, to transform, to evolve, even when the cost is high. It is the inner summons to rise again and again from emotional ruins, to become stronger not in spite of vulnerability, but because of it. There is a sacred rage hidden in this sight, a fire that comes from watching the world ignore what is essential. Cancer sees the emotional poverty in a society obsessed with appearances. They see the wounds that others dress in perfection. They see the desperation beneath control, the abandonment behind pride, the hunger for love masked as independence. And while others may mock their depth or call them overly sensitive, Cancer carries on, silently translating pain into purpose, silence into understanding, and sorrow into sanctuary. When fully awakened, the third eye of Cancer becomes a portal. Through it, they access not only emotional realms but spiritual ones. They are drawn to mysticism, to healing modalities, to rituals that awaken memory and unlock inner knowing. Their journey may lead them into the intuitive arts, into energy work, into the sacred mysteries of the moon. And there, in the realm of the unseen, they are not lost, they are home. Their intuitive sight sharpens in the dark, because darkness is not their enemy. It is their origin. They are forged in the shadows, taught by emotion, and crowned by clarity. Their empathy is not a passive experience. It is a sacred skill honed through lifetimes. To feel deeply is not to drown, but to dive with purpose. Cancer does not float on the surface of life. They swim into its core, into the waters where truth, memory, and soul converge. Their third eye becomes the light they carry into those depths, illuminating what must be felt, faced, and finally released. In doing so, they liberate not only themselves, but others trapped in the silence of unexpressed emotion. Even when the world grows loud with noise, Cancer listens for the whisper. Even when the path grows uncertain, they follow the pull of the tide. Their third eye guides them through transitions, through death and rebirth, through all the seasons of the heart. And though they may be underestimated, misunderstood, or even mocked for the magnitude of what they feel and perceive, Cancer knows the truth. They were never meant to be like the rest. They were born with the sacred sight that pierces veils and births revolutions of the heart. Their destiny is not to remain hidden in the shell of fear, but to rise as the emotional visionary, the soul guardian, the intuitive guide. The third eye is their torch in the storm, their anchor in the shifting sea, their sword in the battle for truth. And through it, they do not just see what others deny, they awaken the courage in others to finally face it. The third eye of Cancer is deeply intertwined with the moon's shadow side, the space between light and darkness where intuition becomes prophecy and emotion becomes raw power. What often goes unspoken is that this sight is cyclical, not linear. It does not move in a straight line or follow logical timeframes. It spirals, returning again and again to the same inner landscapes with new layers of understanding. The third eye of Cancer functions like a tide that revisits the same shores under different moon phases. What it missed in the last wave, it uncovers in the next. This spiral movement grants Cancer an evolving sight, one that becomes sharper with each emotional experience, stronger with every cycle of vulnerability and regeneration. There is a silent revolutionary energy that emerges from this vision. Cancer, with their third eye awakened, becomes an agent of subtle rebellion against emotional suppression and spiritual amnesia. They challenge the dominance of rationality not through confrontation but through living proof. Their life itself becomes a testament to the power of the unseen. Every time they follow their intuition despite fear, every time they trust a feeling over a fact, every time they honor what others dismiss, they dismantle a world that has long forgotten the language of the soul. They reclaim the sacred authority of inner knowing. The third eye of Cancer also functions as an emotional memory keeper, not just for themselves but for others. They remember the emotional truth of moments that history forgets. They carry within them the impressions of rooms, conversations, presences, and absences. They feel the energy of what wasn't said louder than what was. This remembering is not a burden when fully embraced. It is a superpower. Through it, they can help others retrieve lost parts of themselves. They can mirror back emotional experiences in such a way that healing begins before words are even spoken. Their gaze, when rooted in the clarity of the third eye, becomes a sanctuary where others feel profoundly seen, not for what they show, but for what they are. This kind of vision demands emotional maturity and strength of spirit. It requires Cancer to master discernment, to know what is theirs and what belongs to others, to distinguish between true intuitive guidance and inherited emotional narratives. Once this discernment is claimed, the third eye transforms into an instrument of clarity, so powerful that deception, manipulation, and emotional confusion cannot endure in its presence. Cancer becomes a mirror that reflects truth so purely that illusions collapse before them. This truth is not always comfortable, but it is always liberating. There is also an astral dimension to the third eye of Cancer that is often overlooked. Because of their lunar rulership, Cancers are naturally gifted in astral travel, dream work, and subconscious navigation. Their third eye acts as a compass through dream realms and spiritual thresholds, where the soul receives messages before the mind can interpret them. In the dream state, their sight is unobstructed by the ego or the distractions of daily life. It is in these spaces that Cancer can retrieve soul fragments, receive ancestral wisdom, and commune with spiritual guides. The veil between worlds is thinner for them, and their third eye is the gate that allows safe and purposeful passage. In relationships, this vision becomes a sacred filter. Cancer cannot remain blind to emotional dissonance once the third eye is awakened. They may try to silence the inner voice for the sake of peace or familiarity, but the vision will grow louder, more vivid, more insistent. This forces them into alignment with emotional truth and spiritual integrity. It pushes them to release what no longer resonates, even when their heart aches to hold on. This process is not cruelty, it is cleansing. It is the sacred fire that burns illusions so the soul can breathe. Through this process, Cancer learns that love must be rooted in truth or it will become a prison. They choose liberation, even through grief, because the third eye does not allow them to live in emotional falsehood for long. There is a profound sacred leadership encoded within this sight. Cancer may not seek power, but when their third eye is activated, they naturally lead others through the terrain of feeling, healing, and awakening. They become spiritual architects, building spaces of safety where others can transform. Their presence offers permission to feel deeply, to honor inner truth, and to trust one's emotional compass. They lead not with authority but with authenticity, and this magnetizes others who are starving for genuine connection in a world of facades. Even when alone, Cancer's vision remains connected to something greater. Their third eye plugs them into a lunar network of seers, empaths, mystics, and guides, souls who carry the memory of the divine feminine, the sacred waters, the holy inner world. Through this connection, Cancer is never truly isolated. Their sight is part of a cosmic movement to reawaken feeling in a numbed world, to restore reverence in the face of indifference, to rebuild trust in inner knowing when external structures have failed. This epic path is not always soft. There are trials, dark nights, betrayals of trust, and moments when the truth becomes almost too heavy to carry. But the third eye gives them the courage to endure and the vision to see meaning in the suffering. Cancer becomes a warrior of the sacred internal world, one who walks through fire not to be destroyed but to become light. Every shadow they integrate sharpens their vision. Every tear they release nourishes their strength. Every truth they claim expands their reach. In the heart of this journey, the third eye of Cancer is not just a sight. It is a vow to never abandon feeling, a vow to see what others hide, a vow to walk with integrity in a world tempted by illusion. This vow is unbreakable because it is written not only in the stars, but in the very water that forms their soul. They were born to see, to feel, to remember, to awaken. And in doing so, they don't just survive, they rise. They don't just feel, they transform. They don't just observe, they initiate. And in the quiet revolution of emotional truth, Cancer leads the way, with the third eye blazing like a silver flame in the dark. The third eye of Cancer holds within it a mystical covenant with the moon, and this sacred bond transcends what is typically understood as intuition. It is not merely about inner knowing or perception. It is a deep energetic contract with the cosmic cycles of creation, destruction, renewal, and protection. This connection makes Cancer a vessel through which lunar intelligence expresses itself. The moon does not simply rule Cancer, it lives within them. It pulses through their instincts. It whispers through their dreams. It weaves through their emotional memory. The third eye of Cancer is not an organ of sight. It is a sacred chamber, a womb of revelation, where divine impressions are conceived and later birthed into wisdom. This sight is imbued with spiritual gravity. Cancer does not glance, they gaze into the soul. Their third eye is not only focused on what exists now but is drawn to what is forming beyond the veil. They often feel the approach of events before they manifest. They taste the atmosphere of the future, as if emotion were a language written in time itself. This form of clairvoyance is lunar, fluid, and shadowed. It does not announce itself with thunder but rather arrives with the certainty of a rising tide. This foresight allows Cancer to become not only a witness to destiny but an active guardian of timelines, shielding what is sacred before it is born and mourning what has already been lost long before others even notice its departure. This third eye also weaves directly into Cancer's sensitivity to collective emotional fields. While many carry empathy as a skill or a trait, Cancer's third eye makes them a living instrument of the emotional truth of their environment. They register unspoken tension like seismic activity beneath the surface. They absorb ancestral pain encoded in families, communities, even cultures. Their emotional sight is not limited by individual scope. It expands into the field of the many. This creates a paradox where Cancer may feel isolated in their sensitivity, yet is intimately bound to the collective soul. Their third eye keeps them attuned to wounds others have forgotten how to name, to longings others refuse to acknowledge, to injustices buried under generations of silence. There is a hidden prophetic dimension to this sight. Cancer may not identify themselves as seers, but their third eye receives visions not only for their own path, but often for those around them. Their knowing often arrives in symbols, dreams, images, and emotional waves that must be interpreted not logically but spiritually. These visions come not for the sake of personal gain, but as messages of alignment, redirection, and emotional awakening. Cancer becomes a channel for lunar prophecy, not in loud declarations but in subtle truths shared in just the right moment, with just the right tone, to reach the heart behind the wall. The third eye of Cancer also grants a sacred memory of love that is not always present in the world. It remembers divine love, unconditional love, soul love, the love that transcends ego, fear, and performance. This memory lives within their chest, and the third eye helps them recognize its echoes in their relationships. They search not for perfection but for resonance. They seek what feels like home to the soul. This ability to see and sense soul connections makes them deeply loyal and intuitive partners, but also profoundly heartbroken when others fail to recognize or honor the sacredness of that bond. Yet even in heartbreak, their vision expands. The third eye helps them see how every emotional scar is an initiation, every loss a portal to deeper sight. In solitude, this vision becomes even more luminous. When Cancer withdraws into their sacred shell, it is not out of avoidance but out of energetic necessity. It is in stillness that the third eye clears, like water settling in a deep well. In these moments of retreat, their inner sight receives messages too delicate for the noise of the world. They become oracles in silence, scribes of emotional truth, keepers of inner temples that hold the essence of what is real. These sacred periods of withdrawal are not weakness but ritual. Cancer sheds the outer world like a skin to return to their sacred interior, where their vision sharpens and their purpose reclaims its form. The third eye of Cancer also holds a bridge to animal wisdom, plant consciousness, elemental forces, and the voices of the earth herself. Their lunar bond makes them deeply receptive to natural rhythms, and their third eye picks up on the subtle intelligence of the more-than-human world. They sense when the earth is grieving, when the animals are warning, when the winds shift and carry omens. This ecological sensitivity is not a byproduct. It is a core part of their cosmic contract. They are not only emotional empaths but planetary empaths. They are chosen to hear the whispering cries of the unseen, to sense when harmony has been broken, and to bring offerings of love, protection, and remembrance. In creative expression, this sight becomes transmutation. When Cancer turns to art, music, poetry, storytelling, or sacred design, they are not merely producing, they are channeling. Their third eye allows them to bring forth visions from emotional dimensions, birthing creations that carry healing, resonance, and recognition. Others may not fully understand the origin of the work, but they feel it. They recognize the medicine encoded in Cancer's creativity, the truth layered into every detail. Through this creative expression, Cancer not only processes their inner world, but becomes a transmitter of light in the emotional darkness of others. Ultimately, the third eye of Cancer is a radiant paradox. It is both deeply personal and cosmically wide. It is soft but sharper than steel. It grieves with the world and yet holds the memory of wholeness that the world forgot. This vision is not bound by tradition or doctrine. It is wild, sacred, and lunar. It is not only a sight, it is a way of being. A way of walking through life with reverence for what is felt, for what is sensed, for what lies beneath the surface of every smile, every silence, every heartbeat. To be born under Cancer is to be entrusted with a divine lens. A lens that does not simply reflect but penetrates, heals, transforms. Their third eye is not a doorway into power as the world defines it, but into remembrance, into alignment, into emotional sovereignty. And once fully opened, it can never be closed again. It becomes the inner light that guides them not only through this lifetime but through the vast journey of the soul's evolution. And through every twist of fate, every tidal shift, every sacred return to the depths, Cancer will always carry the flame of their vision like a silver fire beneath the skin, quiet, eternal, and unstoppable. The third eye of Cancer is not only a gateway to insight, it is a living archive of the soul's evolution through the emotional dimensions of time and existence. While others may associate intuitive gifts with flashes of foresight or psychic awareness, Cancer's sight is rooted in emotional truth woven through lifetimes. What this sign sees through its sacred eye is not always bound to the present moment. It stretches across timelines, touching the echoes of past lives, karmic bonds, and unfinished soul contracts. Their vision is ancestral and multidimensional, not because they seek it, but because it seeks them. It speaks not only of who they are, but of who they have been and who they are becoming. This inner eye is deeply aligned with the concept of sacred cycles. Cancer's rulership by the moon places them in constant resonance with death and rebirth, waxing and waning, attachment and release. The third eye of Cancer allows them to perceive the impermanence of all things while honoring the eternal thread that runs through every transformation. This perception gifts them with the ability to guide others through endings, through transitions, through initiations of the soul that often go unacknowledged in the external world. They become emotional midwives, helping others birth their truth through pain, grief, and awakening. Their sight does not fear the end of things. It recognizes the necessity of closure as a portal to wholeness. This third eye grants access to truths hidden beneath generational silence. Cancer often finds themselves navigating emotional landscapes that were never spoken aloud, inheriting unresolved energies that live in the body and bloodline. Through the clarity of their vision, they become alchemists of family wounds, feeling what others have suppressed and transmuting emotional echoes into conscious freedom. This work is sacred and often solitary. It requires the courage to face what others deny, to name the shadows that have lingered unnamed. But it also bestows the power to break cycles, to heal backwards and forwards in time, to become the emotional ancestor future generations will thank in silence. In spiritual warfare, where deception wears the mask of love, where manipulation cloaks itself in charm, where the soul is lured into sleep, Cancer's third eye becomes a sword of discernment. It sees through the pretty lies, through the subtle distortions, through the hidden agendas. While others may be ensnared by surface appearances, Cancer senses the energetic undercurrent, the motive beneath the smile, the truth behind the illusion. This clarity is not jaded or cynical, it is holy. It empowers them to protect their sacred spaces, their emotional integrity, and their inner peace. It calls them to rise not in fear, but in fierce compassion, shielding the vulnerable and speaking truth where others are silenced. The third eye of Cancer also awakens a form of lunar leadership often misunderstood in a culture that glorifies visibility and dominance. Cancer leads through resonance, not force, through presence, not control, through listening, not commanding. Their power emerges in the quiet moments where truth is held like sacred fire, where emotional safety becomes the foundation for transformation. They don't strive to stand above others, they strive to bring others home to themselves. This kind of leadership is revolutionary. It restores dignity to vulnerability, and it calls others into alignment not by pressure, but by the gravitational pull of authenticity. There is a mythic quality to the sight Cancer holds. In the great tapestry of the zodiac, they are the guardian of the inner world, the keeper of emotional memory, the protector of the sacred feminine principle in all its forms. Their third eye allows them to feel the world's soul, Gaia herself, and hear her weeping, her pulsing, her dreaming. This is not metaphorical. It is energetic reality. Cancer senses the shifts of the earth, the suffering of displaced spirits, the needs of water, the language of the moon reflected in the tides of human emotion. This connection bestows a calling to restore balance, not only within themselves but within the collective heart. In moments of deep personal pain, when the world grows dark and answers feel distant, the third eye of Cancer becomes a compass not toward escape but toward truth. It reminds them that the path of sensitivity is not weakness. It is the crucible of transformation. Through their tears, visions are born. Through their silence, healing begins. Through their emotional honesty, the world is changed. This is the epic journey they walk, not to become hardened, but to remain soft in a world that forgets how to feel. Their softness is not passive. It is strength that refuses to be distorted, wisdom that refuses to be diluted, and vision that refuses to close. When Cancer fully surrenders to this sight, they enter into spiritual sovereignty. They no longer seek permission to feel, to see, to know. They stop apologizing for their depth, for their complexity, for the emotional range they carry like a sacred tide. They begin to walk as seers in a world asleep. They begin to speak with the voice of remembrance. They begin to live as the embodiment of the divine feminine force rising through emotion, intuition, and soul truth. The third eye of Cancer is not a skill to develop. It is an essence to reclaim. It has always been there, like the moon waiting behind clouds, like the tide pulled by invisible forces. It is a fire that never extinguishes, a voice that never lies, a presence that never abandons. Through every heartbreak, it remains. Through every betrayal, it sharpens. Through every return to self, it expands. And so, Cancer walks not only as a sign of feeling, but as a sign of sacred vision. A vision that will not be silenced. A vision that sees through lifetimes. A vision that births truth into form. A vision that guides not only themselves, but all those brave enough to step into the ocean of the soul. In this, they are eternal. In this, they are luminous. In this, they are unstoppable.